That leaves off page 226. To be invisible, he had to clear his mind. That was the secret. Cole stared up into the darkness. In the cold pond, his mind became almost trance-like. The fish and the beaver had come close until he thought of hurting them. The day he touched the spirit bear, he had been near death and had completely given up trying to be in control. Being invisible had nothing to do with being seen. Being invisible meant not being sensed or felt. This discovery excited Cole and set him to thinking. If animals existed in a world of instincts and senses beyond the conscious thoughts of the mind, what happened to people in their frantic worlds of noise and hectic rushing? How much of the world did people miss because they were not calm enough, empty enough to experience it? Cole's thoughts raced as he stared up at the black ceiling of the small cabin. He couldn't wait until morning. When dawn finally arrived, he hiked to the opening of the bay instead of going to the pond. He made no special preparation except to wear a heavy sweater and rain slicker. The persistent drizzle and cold had become a daily part of his life here on the island. As he walked, he focused on the patterns around him. The lapping waves came as regularly as deep breaths. The light drizzle roughed the water's surface. Clouds hung low as fog, and thousands of smooth, worn rocks lined the timeless shoreline like a ghost highway that disappeared into the mist. Cole felt a part of the pattern as he meandered along the shore. When he reached the point, he picked a natural saddle between two rocks and sat down. He focused his gaze on a small white rock near the water's edge and breathed in deeply. To see the spirit bear, he needed to clear his mind and become invisible, not to the world, but to himself. He left his hood down to let his head and senses remain exposed to the air. The cool drizzle soaked his hair, and soon droplets of water dripped off his forehead and onto his cheeks. When he closed his eyes, the droplets felt warm on his face. At first, they felt like his own tears of anger and fear. Then he breathed more deeply, feeling the rhythm of the world around him, an endless rhythm where time disappeared. As the past, present, and future became one, the droplets on Cole's cheek dripped to the ground, melting into the landscape to which they belonged. When he opened his eyes once again, it was as he were waking from a deep sleep. Far down the shoreline, where the rocks disappeared into the folding mist, a white object had appeared. At the place where things visible faded into not being, there stood the spirit bear, as clear as if it were standing only feet away. The bear gazed patiently. As Cole stared back with the same patience, all time, even the present, ceased to exist. He no longer thought of himself as Cole Matthews, a juvenile delinquent from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Instead, he was part of the landscape, without a beginning or end. Rain dripped off the rocks that lined the shore the same way it dripped from his forehead and flowed down across his cheeks and lips. It blurred his vision, and he blinked. The spirit bear disappeared. Because Cole and the bear belonged to the same landscape now, Cole still felt the bear inside. He closed his eyes, still remembering. When Cole next opened his eyes, he had no idea how much time had passed. He crawled stiffly to his feet and picked his way back along the shoreline toward camp. That night, Cole built a bigger than usual outdoor fire. He cooked his supper ceremoniously. With delicate pinches, he added spices to the boiling water. Then, carefully, he broke in spaghetti noodles. He heated sauce, stirring with deliberate strokes. When he ate, he savored every bite as if it were the last he would ever eat. When Cole finished eating, he washed dishes and carefully folded the towel, which he had used as a tablecloth. Edwin had said that every day and every meal was to be savored, but tonight was extra special in Cole's mind. Today he had discovered how to be invisible, and now he was ready for the dance of anger. Carefully, he stoked the fire once more and sat down to wait for both the flames and his feelings to come alive. When the fire blazed high, Cole stood. Suddenly, a frightening scream escaped his throat. As the sound melted away, the shoreline and into the trees, he began to dance. Spinning and weaving, he crossed the clearing to a solitary tree near the cabin. The tree was a tall cedar with only sparse scrub branches down low. Cole crouched before the solid trunk and doubled his fist menacingly. The tree defied him. That was why he had attacked the spirit bear. Its proud existence challenged him. "Get out of my way," Cole ordered, swinging his fist as if to hit the tree. Again and again, he warned the tree to move out of his way. When it remained, he lunged forward, swinging his fist within inches of the trunk. "Get out of my way," he shouted. "I'm warning you." When still the tree didn't move, Cole grabbed at the lower branches, all the while cursing and muttering angry threats. The branches broke. Cole continued his dance. He spun and lunged at imaginary enemies in the dark, yelling at the rocks and the sky and at the water. "Get away! Don't mess with me!" Already his dance had lasted longer than any of his dances in the past, but Cole was far from done. The whole world was challenging him, and the dance grew more violent. Cursing wildly, he turned back to the flames and gave the burning chunks of wood a hard kick. Flames and hot ashes exploded into the dark. He kicked again and again, and soon the camp was a bed of glowing embers. Cole stalked among the smoldering ashes, grunting with effort and rage. He pretended to throw his spear, then fell to the ground and clutched his hip and arm. He grimaced as he relived the bear attack and the hatred he had once felt for the spirit bear. Twisting on the ground, he relived the pain, the cold, and the loneliness. He continued his dance on the ground as he writhed slowly on his back near the coals. His heart pounded a steady beat like a distant drum. He felt the storm that had killed the sparrows. He saw again the jagged white flash of lightning and heard again the crash of the huge tree that almost ended his life. Still, Cole continued. Standing, he walked to the shoreline and picked up a big rock. The rock became his ancestor rock as he walked in circles. Then, with an exaggerated motion, he heaved the rock into the water. When waves from the splash reached shore, he called into the darkness. "I'm sorry," he screamed louder. "Please forgive me. I didn't mean to hurt Peter." The only answer Cole heard was the breeze pushing through the treetops. Tears came to Cole's eyes and flowed down his cheeks. For several minutes, he let the tears flow, but he knew the dance must continue. Moving back to the fire, he spun among the dying embers on the ground with a graceful motion, gently kicking the larger coals back together. One by one, he returned the scattered chunks to the fire pit, each piece becoming a part of his dance and a part of his healing. The mound of embers and charred wood glowed brighter until a single solitary flame licked up, followed soon by another. Cole hugged his arms tightly to his chest and kept dancing. By the time the fire burned brightly again, sweat beaded his forehead and rolled down his cheeks with tears. He was powerless to stop crying. His tears continued as if from some huge, bottomless lake. Now Cole had danced half the night, but still a defiant flicker of anger remained inside him. He wanted to throw up that anger like bad food and be rid of it forever. He turned to face the tree he had threatened earlier. Again, he lunged toward the tree. Only this time, he let his fist strike the trunk. With each lunge, he struck the tree harder, ignoring the pain. Fist was swollen and bleeding. Cole stopped suddenly. He caught his breath, feeling an overwhelming shame. In the middle of the night, he sank to his knees at the base of the tall cedar, his body shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," he whispered. At that moment, words he had never been able to speak before welled up inside him. "I forgive you," he cried loudly. "I forgive you." Then, his energy totally spent, Cole collapsed to the ground. Now his dance was over. The glowing embers cast faint shadows into the surrounding night and under the trees. A large set of eyes reflected the light, staring patiently out of the darkness.